Colonel Sarah Mitchell had seen her fair share of discrimination during her 23 years of military service. But nothing quite prepared her for what happened that Tuesday morning at Naval Base Coronado. She walked across the sprawling base with the confident stride of someone who had earned every stripe on her uniform through blood, sweat, and unwavering dedication to her country. Sarah's journey to becoming one of the highest-ranking female officers in the Navy began in a small farming town in Iowa, where her father worked double shifts at the local grain elevator to support their family of 6. Her mother, a school nurse, instilled in Sarah the values of hard work and service to others. When Sarah announced at 17 that she wanted to join the Navy, her parents were initially concerned but ultimately supportive of their daughter's ambitious dreams. The early years of her military career were marked by constant challenges and the need to prove herself in a predominantly male environment. Sarah excelled in every training program, from basic seamanship to advanced tactical operations. Her instructors noted her exceptional leadership qualities and her ability to remain calm under pressure. She quickly rose through the ranks, earning respect from her peers and superiors alike through her competence and unwavering integrity. During her deployment in the Persian Gulf, Sarah distinguished herself during a critical rescue operation when her ship encountered a distressed merchant vessel under attack by pirates. She coordinated the rescue effort that saved 37 civilian crew members, earning her the Bronze Star Medal for her courageous actions. This operation became a defining moment in her career, showcasing her ability to make split-second decisions that saved lives. Years of deployments in various conflict zones followed, each assignment adding to Sarah's expertise and reputation as a formidable naval officer. She served in Afghanistan, where she worked closely with Special Operations Forces, coordinating maritime support for ground operations. Her tactical knowledge and ability to work seamlessly with different military branches made her an invaluable asset to joint operations. The path to her current rank as colonel was paved with numerous accomplishments, including her graduation from the Naval War College with highest honors, her successful command of a destroyer escort, and her innovative contributions to naval strategy that were later adopted fleet-wide. Sarah's expertise in maritime security and her ability to think strategically made her a sought-after advisor for high-level military planning. On this particular morning, Sarah was heading to a routine briefing about upcoming training exercises involving multiple military branches. The meeting was scheduled to include representatives from various units stationed at the base, including a group of Navy SEALs who had recently returned from a classified mission overseas. These elite warriors were known for their exceptional skills and their sometimes abrasive attitudes toward conventional military personnel. As Sarah approached the briefing room, she noticed a group of SEALs gathered outside, engaged in what appeared to be casual conversation. Their tactical gear and distinctive uniforms immediately identified them as members of the elite special operations community. She had worked with SEALs before and generally found them to be professional, if sometimes overly confident in their abilities. The morning sun cast long shadows across the base as Sarah checked her watch and quickened her pace. She was never late for meetings and took pride in her punctuality, a trait that had served her well throughout her career. Her uniform was immaculate, her ribbons and insignia properly positioned, reflecting the attention to detail that had become second nature after more than 2 decades of service. As she drew closer to the group of SEALs, Sarah could hear fragments of their conversation about their recent deployment. They were discussing tactical procedures and equipment modifications with the easy confidence of men who had faced danger together and emerged victorious. Their camaraderie was evident in their relaxed postures and shared jokes about their experiences in the field. What happened next would become a moment that neither Sarah nor the SEALs would ever forget. As she walked past their group, one of the younger SEALs, Petty Officer First Class Jake Morrison, looked up from his conversation and noticed her approach. Jake was a decorated operative with several successful missions under his belt, but his youth and recent promotions had perhaps inflated his sense of importance within the military hierarchy. Jake's eyes fell on Sarah's rank insignia, and a smirk crossed his face as he made a comment that would soon prove to be one of the biggest mistakes of his military career. "Look what we have here," he said loud enough for his teammates and Sarah to hear clearly. Another desk jockey playing dress-up with ranks she probably never earned in the field. The comment hit Sarah like a physical blow, not because it hurt her feelings, but because it represented the kind of ignorance and disrespect that she had fought against throughout her entire career. She had encountered similar attitudes before, but rarely so blatantly displayed in such a public setting. The assumption that her rank was somehow undeserved, or that her service was less valuable than that of special operations personnel, revealed a fundamental misunderstanding of how the military actually operated. Sarah stopped walking and turned to face the group of SEALs, her expression calm, but her eyes showing a steely determination that had been forged through years of command experience. The other SEALs in the group immediately sensed that something significant was about to unfold, and their casual conversation died away as they focused their attention on the developing situation. "Excuse me, petty officer," Sarah said, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to command. "Would you care to repeat that comment?" Her tone was professional but left no doubt that she was not someone to be trifled with. The morning air seemed to grow tense as the confrontation began to unfold. Jake, perhaps emboldened by the presence of his teammates or simply unaware of the gravity of his mistake, decided to double down on his disrespectful comment. "I said you look like another officer who got her rank from behind a desk instead of earning it in combat like real warriors do." His words carried the arrogance of youth, combined with a dangerous misunderstanding of military protocol and respect. The other SEALs began to shift uncomfortably, sensing that their teammate had crossed a line that could have serious consequences. Some of them had enough experience to recognize that Sarah carried herself with the bearing of someone who had seen real action, and her calm response to Jake's provocation suggested that she was not intimidated by his special operations credentials. Sarah's military training had taught her to remain composed under pressure, and this situation was no different from the many challenging moments she had faced throughout her career. She understood that how she handled this confrontation would not only affect her own reputation but also set an example for how such disrespect should be addressed within the military structure. "Petty Officer Morrison," she said, having quickly identified his name from his uniform, "I believe you may want to reconsider your assessment of my qualifications and service record." Her words were measured and professional, but there was an underlying steel that suggested she was prepared to address this situation through whatever means necessary. The tension in the air was palpable as other personnel in the area began to notice the developing confrontation. Word traveled quickly on military bases, and situations involving disrespect toward senior officers were always serious matters that could escalate rapidly. Several junior enlisted personnel stopped what they were doing to observe from a respectful distance, understanding that they were witnessing something significant. What none of the SEALs knew, and what Jake Morrison was about to discover in the most embarrassing way possible, was that Colonel Sarah Mitchell was not just any naval officer. Her reputation within the highest levels of military command was legendary, and her service record included classified operations that had shaped military policy at the highest levels of government. The next few minutes would reveal just how catastrophically Jake had misjudged the situation and the woman he had chosen to disrespect. Before Sarah could respond further to Jake Morrison's disrespectful comments, the situation took a dramatic turn that no one present could have anticipated. The sound of approaching footsteps and authoritative voices carried across the base courtyard, causing everyone in the immediate area to turn their attention toward the source of the commotion. 4 senior military officials were walking rapidly toward their location, their uniforms displaying the unmistakable stars of general officers. These were not just any generals, but some of the most respected and influential leaders in the entire United States military structure. Their presence at this particular moment was purely coincidental, as they had been conducting an unscheduled inspection tour of the base facilities. General Robert Harrison, a 4-star Army general known for his strategic brilliance and no-nonsense approach to military discipline, led the group. Beside him walked General Maria Santos, a 3-star Air Force general whose expertise in joint operations had made her one of the most sought-after military advisors in the Pentagon. The third member of the group was General David Chen, a Marine Corps general whose legendary service in multiple combat zones had earned him respect across all military branches. Finally, Admiral Thomas Wright, whose naval career spanned over 35 years and included command of entire fleets, completed this impressive assembly of military leadership. These 4 officers had been discussing classified matters related to upcoming joint exercises when they spotted the gathering near the briefing room. Initially, they planned to simply observe the routine activities on the base, but something about the body language and positioning of the people involved caught General Harrison's attention. His years of command experience had taught him to recognize when situations were developing that required senior intervention. As the generals approached, Jake Morrison was still basking in what he perceived as his successful challenge to Sarah's authority. His fellow SEALs, however, were becoming increasingly uncomfortable with the situation. Several of them had noticed the approaching general officers and were trying to subtly signal to Jake that he needed to end this confrontation immediately, but their teammate was too focused on his perceived victory to pay attention to their warnings. Sarah, meanwhile, had noticed the approaching generals and recognized at least two of them from previous high-level meetings. She maintained her professional composure while preparing to address the situation appropriately when the senior officers arrived. Her years of experience in joint operations had taught her the importance of military protocol, especially when multiple service branches were represented. General Harrison was the first to reach the group, and his experienced eyes quickly assessed the situation. He could see the tension between Sarah and the SEALs, and the body language clearly indicated that some form of confrontation was taking place. His first instinct was to determine the nature of the problem and ensure that proper military discipline was being maintained. "What's the situation here?" General Harrison asked, in his authoritative command voice that had been honed through decades of leadership in the most challenging military environments. His question was directed to the group in general, but his eyes focused on Sarah as the senior officer present, at least from his initial assessment of the rank insignia visible. Jake Morrison, still not fully grasping the magnitude of his error, decided to speak up before Sarah could respond. "Sir, we were just discussing the difference between real combat experience and desk duty with this officer here," he said, gesturing dismissively toward Sarah. His tone carried the same arrogance that had gotten him into trouble in the first place. The four generals exchanged glances that spoke volumes about their assessment of what they were witnessing. These were men and women who had spent their entire careers understanding military hierarchy, respect, and the proper way to address senior officers. Jake's comment and attitude immediately raised red flags about his understanding of basic military courtesy. General Santos stepped forward, her sharp eyes examining Sarah's uniform and insignia more carefully. As she took in the details of Sarah's ribbons, medals, and rank indicators, her expression began to change. She recognized several decorations that were only awarded for exceptional service in combat situations, and the configuration of Sarah's insignia told a story of a distinguished career that few officers ever achieved. "Excuse me," General Santos said, addressing Sarah directly. "But would you mind identifying yourself for the record?" Her tone was respectful and professional, indicating that she suspected there was much more to this situation than initially appeared. Sarah came to attention and rendered a crisp military salute. "Colonel Sarah Mitchell, United States Navy, sir," she responded with the precision and bearing that had become automatic after more than 2 decades of service. Her voice carried the confidence of someone who had nothing to hide and everything to be proud of regarding her military record. The effect of Sarah's identification on the four generals was immediate and dramatic. General Harrison's eyes widened slightly as recognition dawned on his face. He had heard of Colonel Mitchell through military intelligence channels and knew her reputation within the special operations community. General Chen's expression shifted to one of surprise and respect, while Admiral Wright's face showed clear recognition of someone whose service record he was intimately familiar with. General Santos was the first to respond, and her reaction set the tone for what would become one of the most embarrassing moments in Jake Morrison's military career. Without hesitation, she snapped to attention and rendered a sharp, respectful salute to Sarah. "Colonel Mitchell, it's an honor to meet you, ma'am. I've heard exceptional things about your service record." The other 3 generals immediately followed suit, coming to attention and saluting Sarah with the respect due to her rank and, more importantly, her distinguished service record. Admiral Wright stepped forward after lowering his salute and extended his hand to Sarah. "Colonel, your work in joint operations has been instrumental in several successful missions that I'm familiar with. It's a privilege to finally meet you in person." Jake Morrison's face went through a series of expressions as he began to realize the magnitude of his mistake. The sight of 4 general officers showing such obvious respect and deference to the woman he had just insulted was starting to penetrate his consciousness. His fellow SEALs were equally stunned, but their shock was mixed with a growing sense of horror at what their teammate had done. General Harrison turned his attention to Jake, his expression now stern and disapproving. "Petty officer, did I understand correctly that you were questioning Colonel Mitchell's qualifications and service record?" His voice carried the weight of authority that came from commanding thousands of troops in multiple combat zones. The question hung in the air like a sword waiting to fall. Jake's mouth opened and closed several times as he struggled to find words that might somehow salvage the situation. His teammates looked on with a mixture of sympathy and disbelief at the hole their colleague had dug for himself. Sarah, maintaining her professional composure throughout this dramatic reversal, chose to address the situation with the grace and leadership that had defined her entire career. "Generals, I appreciate your confidence in my service, but I believe Petty Officer Morrison was simply operating under some misunderstandings about my background. These things happen when personnel from different commands work together for the first time." Her diplomatic response impressed the generals and demonstrated the kind of leadership qualities that had earned her such a distinguished reputation. However, General Harrison was not inclined to let such a serious breach of military discipline pass without proper attention. "Colonel Mitchell, while I appreciate your professional handling of this situation, disrespect toward senior officers is a serious matter that reflects on military discipline and good order," General Harrison said. His words made it clear that Jake's behavior would not be overlooked simply because Sarah was willing to be gracious about it. The implications of the situation were becoming clearer to everyone present. Jake Morrison had not simply been rude to a fellow service member. He had disrespected a highly decorated senior officer in front of witnesses, including 4 general officers who were now fully aware of what had transpired. The military justice system took such matters very seriously, and Jake's career was now in serious jeopardy. General Chen, whose experience with special operations gave him insight into the dynamics between different military units, decided to address the broader issue. "Petty officer, the special operations community prides itself on professionalism and respect for the chain of command. Your comments today fall far short of the standards we expect from elite military personnel." The weight of the general's disapproval was crushing, and Jake finally found his voice. "Sir, I apologize. I made assumptions that were completely inappropriate and disrespectful. I have no excuse for my behavior." His apology was heartfelt, but the damage to his reputation and career prospects was already done. What happened next would determine whether Jake Morrison's military career could survive this catastrophic error in judgment, and whether Sarah Mitchell's gracious handling of the situation would be enough to prevent a full-scale disciplinary action that could destroy a young SEAL's future. The silence that followed Jake Morrison's apology was deafening. Every person present understood that this moment would define not only Jake's future, but also serve as a lesson about respect, assumption, and the true meaning of military honor. The 4 generals waited for Sarah's response, knowing that her decision would carry significant weight in determining how this incident would be resolved. Sarah looked at Jake Morrison for a long moment, studying the young SEAL's face. She could see genuine remorse in his eyes, mixed with the dawning realization of how badly he had misjudged the situation. Her years of command experience had taught her to read people quickly and accurately, and she could tell that Jake's apology was sincere, even if it came only after his mistake had been exposed in the most humiliating way possible. "Petty Officer Morrison," Sarah began, her voice calm but authoritative, "I want you to understand something important. The military is not just about individual heroics or special operations. It's about teamwork, respect, and understanding that every person wearing this uniform has made sacrifices to serve their country. Your assumption that my rank was unearned reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of how military service actually works." Jake nodded, his face flushed with embarrassment as Sarah continued her explanation. "I've spent 23 years serving in various capacities, from ship operations to joint special operations planning. I've been in combat zones, made life and death decisions, and earned every ribbon and rank insignia on this uniform through dedication and performance. But more importantly, I've learned that true military leadership means respecting your fellow service members and understanding that we all have different roles to play in defending our nation." General Harrison stepped forward, his expression serious but not entirely unsympathetic. "Colonel Mitchell, How would you like this matter to proceed? As the senior officer who was disrespected, you have the right to pursue formal disciplinary action against Petty Officer Morrison. The question put Sarah in a position where her response would demonstrate the kind of leader she truly was. She could pursue formal charges that would likely end Jake's military career, or she could find a way to turn this incident into a learning experience that might actually make him a better service member. Sarah glanced at the other SEALs, who were watching their teammates' fate being decided. She could see the concern in their eyes, not just for Jake but for their unit's reputation. These were elite warriors who had risked their lives for their country. And despite Jake's serious error in judgment, Sarah recognized that destroying his career might not serve the greater good of military readiness and morale. Generals, Sarah said thoughtfully, I believe in redemption and learning from mistakes. Petty Officer Morrison has shown genuine remorse for his actions, and I think this incident has already taught him a valuable lesson about respect and assumptions. Rather than pursuing formal disciplinary action, I would like to propose an alternative solution. The generals listened intently as Sarah outlined her proposal. I suggest that Petty Officer Morrison be assigned to work directly with my staff for the next month during the joint training exercises. This will give him an opportunity to see firsthand what desk duty actually entails and understand the complexity of military operations that happen away from the direct action environment. Admiral Wright nodded approvingly at Sarah's suggestion. That's a constructive approach, Colonel. It would provide educational value while still addressing the disciplinary aspect of this incident. General Santos added, I think that arrangement would benefit not only Petty Officer Morrison, but potentially his entire unit. Understanding the broader military structure makes special operations personnel more effective in joint operations. Jake Morrison looked stunned by Sarah's merciful response to his disrespectful behavior. Ma'am, I don't deserve your consideration after what I said, but I would be honored to work with your staff and learn from this experience. I give you my word that I will approach this assignment with complete professionalism and an open mind. Sarah smiled slightly, the first time her expression had softened since the confrontation began. Petty Officer, everyone deserves a chance to grow and learn. The military is strongest when we understand and respect each other's contributions, regardless of our specific roles or assignments. General Chen, whose experience bridged both special operations and conventional forces, saw an opportunity to reinforce the broader lesson. This incident highlights something important for all military personnel. Elite units like the SEALs are incredibly valuable, but they're most effective when they work seamlessly with the broader military structure. Mutual respect and understanding between different units and ranks is essential for mission success. The other SEALs visibly relaxed as they realized that their teammate's career would survive this incident, though they understood that Jake would face ongoing scrutiny and would need to prove himself worthy of the second chance he had been given. Several of them were already thinking about how they could support his learning process during the upcoming assignment. Admiral Wright turned to address the broader group. Let this serve as a reminder to everyone about the importance of military courtesy and the danger of making assumptions about your fellow service members. Colonel Mitchell's distinguished service record speaks for itself, but more importantly, her gracious handling of this situation demonstrates the kind of leadership we need at all levels of our military structure. Over the following weeks, Jake Morrison's assignment to work with Sarah's staff proved to be transformative for both him and his understanding of military operations. He discovered that the coordination required for successful military missions was far more complex than he had ever imagined. Sarah's team was responsible for integrating intelligence from multiple sources, coordinating logistics for multi-branch operations, and developing strategic plans that required expertise in everything from international law to advanced technology systems. Jake found himself working 18-hour days, trying to keep up with the pace and complexity of Sarah's operation. He learned about diplomatic considerations that affected military planning, budget constraints that required creative solutions to operational challenges, and the incredible amount of detailed preparation that went into every mission he had previously taken for granted. Sarah proved to be a demanding but fair supervisor, pushing Jake to expand his understanding while recognizing his special operations expertise when it was relevant to their planning processes. She included him in high-level briefings where his tactical knowledge was valuable, while also ensuring he understood the broader strategic context that drove military decision-making. The transformation in Jake's attitude and understanding was noticed by everyone who worked with him. His fellow SEALs saw a new level of maturity and respect in his interactions with personnel from other units and ranks. His initial arrogance had been replaced by genuine curiosity about how different parts of the military work together to achieve common objectives. One particularly meaningful moment came 3 weeks into his assignment when Sarah asked Jake to brief a group of senior officers on special operations capabilities for an upcoming mission. His presentation was professional, detailed, and showed a new understanding of how his unit's capabilities fit into the broader military structure. After the briefing, Sarah pulled him aside for a private conversation. "Petty Officer Morrison," she said, "I want you to know that your attitude and work over the past few weeks have been exemplary. You've shown that you can learn from mistakes and grow as both a service member and a person. That's the mark of true military leadership." Jake's response showed how much the experience had changed him. "Ma'am, I owe you an enormous debt of gratitude, not just for giving me a second chance, but for showing me what real leadership looks like. I was so focused on what I thought made someone a real warrior that I completely missed the bigger picture of what military service actually means." The month-long assignment concluded with a formal evaluation that became part of Jake's permanent record. Sarah's assessment noted his initial unprofessional behavior, but emphasized his remarkable growth and learning throughout the assignment. She recommended him for leadership development programs that would help him become a more well-rounded military professional. Years later, Jake Morrison would go on to become one of the most respected leaders in the special operations community, known not only for his tactical skills but for his ability to work effectively with personnel from all military branches and his deep understanding of joint operations. He often spoke to new recruits about the importance of respect and the dangers of making assumptions about fellow service members. Sarah Mitchell continued her distinguished career, eventually earning promotion to admiral before her retirement. Her handling of the incident with Jake Morrison became a case study in military leadership schools, demonstrating how strong leaders can turn moments of crisis into opportunities for growth and learning. The story of their confrontation and its resolution spread throughout the military community, serving as a powerful reminder that true strength comes not from putting others down, but from lifting them up and helping them become better versions of themselves. It showed that real military honor lies not just in individual heroics, but in the wisdom to recognize potential in others and the courage to give second chances when they are deserved. The 4 generals who witnessed the incident often reflected on how Sarah's response demonstrated the kind of leadership the military needed at all levels. Her ability to balance accountability with compassion, and to see beyond a single moment of poor judgment to recognize someone's potential for growth, exemplified the values that made the American military strong. The incident became a turning point not just for Jake Morrison, but for discussions about respect, leadership, and mutual understanding throughout the military. It reminded everyone that the true test of character comes not in moments of triumph, but in how we handle conflict, criticism, and the opportunity to show mercy to those who have wronged us.